Look, when you host virtual events on the Remo platform, one of the things that you really want to do is make sure that your guests are making meaningful connections. Have you ever wondered if there's a way that AI can help you do that? Well, Remo has a new feature that uses the power of AI to help you do that, to help you become a better guest. And we have a guest here today to walk us through that new feature. I'm Seth Resler from Community Marketing Revolution, and I want to welcome a very special guest that we have here today, Tasneem Muchala. Thank you so much for joining us. You're the product manager for Remo, and you've got an exciting new feature that you're going to share with us today.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much, Seth and Jared, for having me on today. And I'm really excited to debut our new networking recommendations feature for Remo.
All right, so we're going to get a walkthrough in just a moment, but I want to talk about why I think this is so important first. We talked at one of our previous meetups about the concept of engineering serendipity. That essentially, I look at everything through the lens of how can we use these virtual events to build community. And what we mean by build community is essentially create a space where people can connect and for those connections to be meaningful, to be lasting, for something bigger to come out of them. It's not just a, hey, how you doing? And then we go our separate ways. You actually want something lasting to come out of that. And we call that serendipity when that happens. When, Paul McCartney and John Lennon get together and say, let's start a band, or Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs say, let's start a company, or Kanye West and Kim Kardashian say, let's start a family. Whatever it is, something more comes out of it, right? That's serendipity. And you can't make serendipity happen because there's a certain element of chance to it. But you can do what's called engineering serendipity, which is create conditions under which these chance encounters are more likely to happen. And like I said, we talked about this in a previous meetup, and I offered some ways to engineer serendipity that were kind of old-fashioned, didn't require actual engineers. But you have actual engineers who, or computer programmers who can actually work on this, and you've been down in the lab. And that's what this new feature is all about, right? I mean, that's the goal of it.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So the whole goal of networking recommendations is basically to help elevate or increase the efficiency of networking at online events. So that's completely ties in with everything that you were saying, Seth. So I'm really glad you brought it up.
Yeah, and the way I think about this is you can have an event with 100 or 200 or 2,000 people at it, and certain people that are attending that event are going to be more relevant to you than others. And the question is, how can an event producer help make sure that people connect with the other people who are most relevant to them? So let me hand it over to you, and you're going to go ahead and walk us through this feature. But tell us a little bit about it, and I'd love to see what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a brief intro kind of to what networking recommendations is. I think you hit the nail on the head there, Seth. At a large, particularly large networking event, it can be really difficult for your attendees to find who to speak with and what to speak about. I think typically at a networking event, you tend to gravitate towards the person that you see that's available or at a table by themselves, and then you try and talk about a whole range of different topics like their job, what the weather is like, to try and find that one sort of like similarity or commonality between two people. And that can be really difficult. It can be a bit like finding a needle in a haystack kind of thing at networking events. And that's kind of why this feature was basically developed on Remo's side, is to help you and your guests kind of elevate the networking experience online a lot faster, and to help attendees in particular find the right people to connect with, and to even offer them tailored talking points to guide conversations so you can help discover those meaningful and valuable connections a lot faster at an event as well. So without further ado, let me give you a brief walkthrough of kind of how networking recommendations works. So networking recommendations is actually an event level toggle. So once you have your event created, which I have over here, you can basically go into your My Events page, find the event that you've created, and go into your event settings. Then go into Advanced and Registration. So this is typically where you would be able to add or create your custom registration form and ask the questions that you want to collect information for during registration. But now with this feature, we've actually got a new toggle over here called Networking Recommendations. And once you enable that toggle, you can see that 4 questions will be added by default into your custom registration form. Now, these questions are really essential to the feature as they're the questions that basically help collect as much information from your attendees that will aid our matchmaking process. So we're asking questions like, what are your attendees' networking goals? What can they offer other attendees at the event? And a little bit about their professional background. That's why we're asking for their LinkedIn profile and their company website URL as well. Now, these questions are not editable and they cannot be deleted if you've got the feature enabled for your event. But what you can do is you can still add your own custom registration questions. So if you want to collect additional information, for example, what is your job title? You can still do that into your custom registration form, and you can rearrange the order of your form as you see fit. And essentially, actually, that's basically it. Your networking recommendations is now actually set up and enabled for your event. So the setup process for event organizers is really, really quick. But a few caveats I want to point out over here is that you can only enable this feature, as I mentioned, on an already published or created event, right? And you can only enable this feature if there are more than 2 hours left before your event is scheduled to start. And I'll go through a little bit of why that's important a little bit later on. All right, but that's 2 things to bear in mind. All right, so that's basically it. Networking recommendations is now set up for your event. So I'm going to go ahead and show you now what the registration experience would look like for your guests for an event that has networking recommendations enabled. All right, so this is the registration page for an event that I've previously created that has networking recommendations enabled. So I'm going to show you what that registration experience will look like for your guests. So you'll see that I am logged in already, but for your guests that aren't logged in, they'll click on register for event and they'll first be asked to log into their Remo account, as is usually the case with Remo registration. Once they're logged in, then they'll be shown the custom registration form. So this includes any questions that you have added to your custom registration form, along with our 4 questions or key questions that I showed you before. So again, what are your networking goals? So I'm just going to type in some information right now, but of course your attendees would answer that. All right, and then they can click on continue. And there you go. Registration is now successful. So I want to go back to one of the caveats that I mentioned before, that you can only enable this feature when there are more than 2 hours left. So why that is because with this feature, we will begin the matchmaking process 2 hours before your event is scheduled to start. So that means that anybody that registers after that 2-hour mark, or less than 2 hours before your event starts, they will not be included in your matchmaking for this event.
Cool. That was pretty simple. So can you now walk us through how you actually use the feature as a host within the event when the event is actually going on?
Yep, absolutely. So let's jump into an event that I've already got live right now. So this, for example, is an attendee that, again, set up networking recommendations for this event, and this attendee has now jumped into the event space. And you can see the first thing that's different about this event space is that you'll notice on the bottom bar, we've got a new button over here called Connections. So Connections will basically let your attendees see the list of personalized recommendations that they matched with. And they also see a pop-up when they first join the event that, again, highlights or calls out the fact that they have connection recommendations available to them. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the View Connections. There we go. This list is basically, it lives within the right side panel. So again, your attendees can navigate to this list. They can still access chat, participants, Q&A, all the regular tabs in the Remo event. But now we've got this new tab for Connections. The Connections tab will basically list out all of the matches that are tailored for this specific user. So these are all the people that our AI algorithm is recommending for this user, Jessica Carter, to meet with. So for each recommended match, you'll be able to see a little bit of information about that person. So it's like a mini bio or summary of who that person is, as well as 4 customized tailored talking points. So with Remo's algorithm, we're basically not only producing or letting guests know who they should meet with, but we're even extending that to give conversation starters to really highlight what the commonalities are, what the similarities are between 2 people. We provide discussion topics or even potential business collaboration opportunities for 2 users to engage with as well. And these are all basically serving as potential conversation starters or talking points for 2 people, so they can really dive deep into a conversation from the get-go as well. So for each match, again, you'll be able to see your mini bio about the person, these 4 tailored talking points, and there are some quick actions that I want to walk through as well. So the first one is locate participant. So that's quick Where Am I functionality to locate where on the floor plan your recommended match is. You can also click to invite the user to your table if you're on a different table. And the other thing I want to highlight as well is when you've got this connections tab open up or this panel opened up, you can see that there's a little yellow ring around the recommended match. So this is just a visual indicator for you to see, especially on a busy floor plan, who your recommended matches are. The other thing as well is when you eventually do meet with one of your recommended connections. So for example, I've joined the table over here. The other thing you'll notice is there's now a little recommended badge on the user's tile of who you're recommended with. So if I hover over, as you can see, it also brings up those tailored talking points once again. So it's easier reference for you as you're even in a conversation, what potential conversation starters or topics you can discuss with your recommended connection. Now, let's say that these two people have had a really great match and Jessica wants to learn a little bit more about this recommended match by connecting with them even after the event has ended. Easy way to do that is, again, to go into your Connections tab. There's even a Request Contact Info button that they can click over here. And this opens up a direct one-to-one message with that person where you can basically ask for further contact information to connect with them after the event as well. For each recommended match, you can also rate the quality of your match, so with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Now, this information is not passed over to any of the other guests inside the event. It's only going to be used to evaluate the quality of the match.
So I love this. I actually really love this. I think this is fantastic, and is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about engineering serendipity. So I have a few questions that I'm sure are on people's minds, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Can I ask? Starting with this, is this already available? Is this, or are you still testing this at this point?
So the feature is actually already available. So if you do want to test it for your own events, or if you want to try it out for your events, you can go ahead and get in contact with our sales and success team, and they'll be able to get you started right away with it.
Got it. So this is an add-on feature. It doesn't come
Yes.
with the plan. Have you
At
guys
the
figured
moment,
out pricing yet, or is it still something that you're determining?
at the moment, we're still determining pricing, so you can contact our sales and success team for the most detailed information for this feature.
Got it. As I find with Remo, it's you guys make the technology so easy that it's really easy to use. That I find that the challenge is always just, okay, how do I explain this to the attendees,
Yes.
especially when it's their first time coming to an event? Have you just thought about that? Like how do you explain this in a sentence or two and just go, hey, by the way, this is here? I don't know.
Absolutely.
I got to be thinking about how to do that. What do you recommend?
Yeah. That's definitely one of the major things that we were thinking about when we were designing this feature. So you'll notice a couple of points during the demo as well. We've tried to tweak the language in the actual application that makes it a little bit friendlier and explains in a sentence essentially what an attendee should do and why they should do it. So right at the beginning, when this person first loaded into the event, you saw that little pop-up that appears over the connections button. So that's their first indication that there's something there for them to be able to click on. And it even highlights who their recommended match is. And believe it says like, we think you should connect with so-and-so person. So that's the first one. And then we also got, we think you would connect well with at the top as well to try to guide them towards the information or the list of matches that we think would be successful for them to connect with. And that's also why we opted to put in like the recommended badge, the yellow indicator, so that already attendees know that there's something different about this experience. Otherwise, why would these 5 people, like for example, be like highlighted or in yellow on a floor plan, right? It drives natural curiosity as well to try and see. And as soon as they're on a table with that person, they'll be able to see this recommended badge on their user tile, which will also guide them to more information. The same information is also available when they hover over the tile. Again, another common interaction that guests will do. So all of these kind of are how we're hoping and why we built or designed this feature in a way to try and make it as easy or as intuitive for a guest or an attendee to be able to use the feature without too much information given from a host as well.
Got it. Now, this is obviously, as it's built, geared more towards professional use. I mean, you're drawing, for example,
Yes.
from people's LinkedIn profile. Are you envisioning that down the road, there might be other sources or more customization that you could build from? For example, if we wanted to do a speed dating event and I wanted to put in there, hey, what's your astrological sign, or things like that. Is that part of
Absolutely.
the ultimate game plan?
Yeah, definitely. So we envision kind of how this feature would go in the long term. And that's definitely one of like, obviously, networking is so broad as a use case as well. You've got professional business networking, you've got speed dating, you've got two-sided matchmaking. There's so many different realms that, a networking event can go into. And that's what we're really excited about with this feature, because this kind of gives us the stepping stone, essentially, to start with professional business networking events. But as we kind of see how more and more people are using the feature, how valuable they're finding the feature, that also then will help us progress this feature into basically tailoring it for more and more use cases like speed dating, for example, which is something that we have actually talked about. But of course, is not the first step. We want to see kind of how people use this feature to begin with, and then we can develop it further. But definitely customizing like the questions and how people are matched together is definitely something that we're thinking about down the line as well.
Got it. Is there any reporting in the back end after the event? Can you see whether people use this feature, or what does that look like?
So at the moment, we don't have reporting for the event organizer, but we are tracking that information. So if it is something that event organizers are interested in hearing about, that's definitely something that we can take down as feedback to see how we can send that information over to event organizers after the event or even during the event potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love a data points around it. I'm not actually
Yeah.
sure what those data points would be quite yet,
Uh,
but
I think in essence it would kind of be who your attendees have matched with, how many people have actually had conversations with their matches. Could also be the ratings, for example, how many
right.
people have
Yep.
requested for follow-up information. There's quite a bit there that we could potentially track and then obviously send over to event organizers after the fact as well.
Got it. And you
That's
know
that's
me,
a good point for feedback.
I always like to integrate this with my other tools. Is this used with Zapier at the moment, or will it be down the road?
So at the moment, it's not, but I believe the custom registration questions, like the answers that you collect during the registration form, those are available with Zapier. I will double check though, just to
Yeah.
confirm whether that information is true. Um, but in terms of how many people have actually matched with their connections, that information at the moment is not available with Zapier. But again, taking it down as feedback, that's kind of why I wanted to jump onto this call and get as much feedback as possible from yourself, from Jared, from the other event organizers at Remo as well.
All right, I love that. I would call it Zapier, and I think it's actually Zapier. I think I'm wrong, but
Is it
I
Zapier,
just
Zapier? I never knew.
I developed that bad habit and have never been able to break it. Well, look, Tasneem, this is great. I mean, I really love this. Please let the team know that we all think this is really exciting. We're looking forward to this feature. With that, I want to go back to the tables and let other people ask you questions about it, and we'll play with it as well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really excited to debut this, and I'm glad that it's with the Community Marketing Revolution.
I'm Seth Resler from Community Marketing Revolution, and I've got that free quick start guide to hosting events on Remo. You can download that by using the link in the description to this video. And if you want more great advice on hosting virtual events or building a community, I suggest you check out this video right here.